Hello and welcome. Today I want to show you guys how to replace a thermostat on your Chrysler, Dodge, or Volkswagen minivan. This will work for all years that use the 3.6 liter engine. And in my experience, it has been the Volkswagen Routan, the Dodge Grand Caravan, and Chrysler Town and Country. Here we have the new thermostat, so it sits like this on this side right here. You're going to need to take out 2 bolts and then take off this hose, which is clamped right here. Clamped, I apologize. This job in theory is not very difficult. There's just not a lot of space. What I would recommend is moving the power steering reservoir out of the way. This is a 13mm nut. Place that up there. There we go. This should give you enough room to kind of move it to the side. If you want to take the extra step, you could disconnect both of these hoses. Then you'd be draining power steering fluid. You'd have to refill it. But this way you could kind of move it out of the way and it'll give you more access to take off the clamp and then the bolts that are holding in the thermostat. Now with the clamp way down there, we have enough room where it's not holding onto the thermostat. So now the struggle will be to actually break and loose this hose, because over the years it basically gets caked on there. So typically what I would do is grab the hose as well as you can and then try to twist it. Once you twist it, it'll be easier to take it off. If that doesn't work, you could use a screwdriver or like a needle nose hook plier or something along those lines, and essentially grab the hose from underneath and kind of peel it up a little bit to separate it from the plastic housing. As you guys can see, I kind of broke it loose a little bit, and now it's starting to slide off. Once this hose comes off, you will spill some coolant. So make sure when you're doing this job, you do have some coolant to add back into the system. Now the thermostat bolts are 10mm. They are a lot easier to take out than to put back in. You could see the top one, but the bottom one has to be just felt. So it'll be a little bit challenging to kind of put them back in. I am having a very hard time getting focus. If you guys can't tell, I apologize about that. But once you break them loose, you could do them by hand all the way until it comes out. Both of the 10mm bolts are out. Now we could just, there you go, wiggle, wiggle. And here's our old thermostat. Couldn't inspect it, but since I'm replacing it, there's no reason to look for faults. There we have it. So now work your other way or the other way around and install the new one. Easiest way is installing or threading the first bolt and then doing the one at the bottom because it kind of hangs almost, not perfectly, but it's a lot easier doing it this way. So now I threaded both of them in, hand tightened them as much as I could. Going to finish up with the 10mm socket, and then I guess another harder part is putting that hose back on. The hose is on, the clamp is on. The clamp I struggled with, but it's on there correctly. So now we get to add more coolant to the cooling reservoir, or not reservoir, I guess to the radiator itself. And then if you guys will see, this Phillips, my goodness, this is a bad area to film. That Phillips head or flathead screw, it's plastic, so that's your purge. Once you put coolant in here to get rid of the air bubbles, you can loosen that and it'll get rid of the air bubbles, and then make sure you tighten it so you don't start puking up coolant everywhere. You guys see that? I loosened that, and now we have just straight up coolant coming out. So now I'm going to tighten it. It made a really odd noise when the air bubbles were coming out, but it seems like we're okay now. I ended up pouring most of the coolant into the reservoir rather than the radiator itself. So now, why I have these bottles is because that's concentrate that I use, so I had to mix it with water. But this is not hot yet, so we can open that up. Yeah, it's still cold. So let it warm up and check inside the cabin. If you have heat coming through, then you are done, and essentially you did it correctly. I think it might be a little too early for me to check for heat, but let's turn it up. We can sync it. I mean, somewhat. Could also give it gas to open up the thermostat and get everything flowing. Yeah, I have heat. And as you guys can see, it's not even fully warmed up, but I definitely already feel warmth. But because that purge is so easily accessible, I am going to open it up again, see if there are any other air bubbles in there. And I apologize, it's so hard to get a good angle here. So there we have it. You just have straight coolant coming out. I'm sure there will be still a few bubbles, but going to tighten it. You guys hear that? Purging. Okay. Level is fine. I will say the job is complete, but again, once you first start driving, keep some spare coolant, water inside your vehicle, just in case there's a bubble that got stuck, and when you're driving, if it starts to overheat or whatnot, you have coolant to add. But since I do have heat, all of them are topped off, I think I'm okay. So I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in another video.